Welcome to the Hawley Baptist Church podcast, connecting you to a community in which everyone is welcome, lives are changing, and Jesus is King. Thanks for joining us today. You can subscribe to keep up to date with us. Did you know you can also join our service each Sunday via a live online meeting? Please get in touch to find out more about that. But for now, we pray you enjoy what God has in store for you in this episode and that it helps change your life for the better. In Jesus' name, welcome.
Hi, welcome to the podcast. I'm Richard.
And I'm Angie.
And we're here for the final one in the session, isn't it? What's it called?
Black and White Thinking, the series has been.
Black and White, yes, the series. I'm
Yes.
thinking about today's...
I've got to read it because it's written down because it's quite
yeah,
long,
go
so
on
I have to read it. Choosing the third way, the Jesus-shaped life. The third way. I don't know what that means.
Jesus-shaped life. But
Not
we'll
that,
go
but-
with that there.
Yeah, we've got Jesus-shaped life. So it's been quite a good series so far. I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it.
Yes, yeah.
So it's all been about, black and white thinking, how we can think one thing or something else, and then that can cause division and
Judging. And...
judging each other. And, yeah, it's been a good series. If you haven't caught it, I'd listen to it. It's been
Yes,
different.
yeah. Go back and see the other one.
Yeah. So shall we see what he's got to say?
Yeah, let's get into it.
Let's go.
Apologies. As Daz says, we are finishing, we're concluding our 4-part sermon series on black and white thinking. And there's quite a few visitors here this morning. But one, you can always catch up on YouTube and podcasts. And also, hopefully, this will be a standalone sermon that will be understandable enough. And really, this is a challenge to those of you who would call yourselves Christians. But even if you're not a Christian, hopefully, one, this will be interesting. And two, this might be something that will challenge you and make you think a little bit about some of the ways you live your life as well. Many years ago, when I was a young whippersnapper, me and my wife, no, not wife, because we went to a marriage course. We were going to get married, and we attended a marriage course at Jen's church. We were both living in London at the time. She was in North London. I was in South London. We met at her church, a large church called St. Mary's Church in Marylebone. And there, being a large church, there were loads of guys, our sort of age, loads of couples looking at getting married. And we went along, had a nice meal, went in the basement, sat on sofas and listened to talks every week about a different aspect of marriage, preparing us for marriage. And one of the talks that really stuck with us was one about how to argue well. Because the reality is, when you get married, you will argue, so you might as well do it properly. So we went on and had a whole talk just on that. And one of the things they said was, try and avoid using the phrase, you always leave the toilet seat up. You always leave me to empty the dishwasher. You always leave your towel on the floor. It sounds like me talking to my kids, actually. But anyway, we were told to not use that phrase. And it's really important because what it does is it reduces your spouse, your opponent in the arguments, into a 2D caricature. You always, you never, you think this, you believe that. And we ignore nuance because it makes it easier for us to fight against someone who we can just neatly put in a box. We're not seeking reconciliation. We're seeking to prove that we are right. And that's really what black and white thinking, which is the name of our series, and what we've been looking at these last few weeks, is all about. Black and white thinking is the habit of reducing complex situations and people into two simple options: right or wrong, us or them, win or lose, so that we don't have to sit with uncertainty or tension in our minds, because that's what makes us feel uncomfortable when we don't quite understand what is going on. Our brains like simplicity, even if it isn't necessarily correct. We fit people into neat categories, boxes that help us to make sense of the world, but we ignore all of the complexities in people, because people are complex. The world is more complex than we would like to think. And the world, we're going to be looking at how we deal with disagreements this morning. And the world really gives us two options: fight or flight. You've probably heard of that before. Fight or flight. So fight is we draw battle lines, we gather our defenses, we loudly state our position, and we attack our opponents. Flight, on the other hand, is very different. We withdraw, we disengage, we stay silent, we ignore the elephant in the room. And this may be in big things like politics, it may be in smaller things, but possibly more important, our marriages or our relationships, our friendships. For fight, the risks are division and splits and breakdowns of relationships. For flights, the risks are immaturity, lack of growth and challenge, superficiality and mediocrity. And this is natural because of the way our brains work. But what is natural is not always healthy. And what feels right is not always what leads to life. And what I want to give to you this morning is a third way of responding in our arguments and disagreement. And really, I just want to ask this question. This is a question that's been kind of going around my head this whole series. This sermon series has been incredibly challenging to me, and it may have been to you as well. How I think, how I treat people, the assumptions I naturally make about people. But I want to just I've been asking this question, is it possible to disagree and be united? Once again, I'm thinking this context in the church, but this applies to any context where people come together. Is it possible to disagree and be united? We are going to look at a letter in our New Testament written to the church in Rome. Okay, so the church, the early church, Jesus died, he's resurrected, he ascends into heaven. He leaves all these bunch of his followers to start the church. Not without him as such, because he had the Holy Spirit, but he wasn't there in person. And almost straight away, divisions started happening. We've been looking at that in the last few weeks. We looked at the church in Ephesus, which is now Turkey, and had the splits they had. Last week, we looked at the church in Corinth, in Greece, and the splits they had. And we're going to look at the church in Rome and the splits they had. And what happened in Rome was, well, I find it in my notes. It was a mixed church of Jews and non-Jews. So Jesus was a Jew, very lots of customs, traditions, very strict rules that they followed, and they took those kind of into their newfound faith in Jesus. But they also incorporated into their church loads of non-Jews who didn't have all those rules and regulations and different ways of doing things. And obviously there's going to be a bit of a clash, but we don't know much about that. But what we do know is that all the Jews were chucked out of Rome by the Emperor Claudius. This happened quite a lot to the Jews, unfortunately. They all got chucked out. Then 5 years later, they were allowed back in. But they went to go back to their church, and they'd found out all those non-Jews had messed it all up. They'd changed all the ways of doing things. They'd moved all the furniture. They'd redecorated. It was not how they wanted to be, not how they believed it should be. So all these arguments and divisions ensued. And what we're looking at is a letter written by a guy called Paul. Paul hated Christians until he had this amazing encounter with Jesus. And he went from being a persecutor of Christians to being a Christian, a follower of Jesus himself. And he was a church planter. He was a missionary. He went around to loads of cities starting churches. And then when he went off to somewhere else, he wrote them letters to help them. And much of our New Testament is made up of those letters written by Paul. And the letter Romans is written to the church in Rome, speaking into their divisions, their problems. And the first 11 chapters, most of the book is just this dense explanation of what has happened in Jesus. He talks about humanity's problem with sin. He talks about God's radical grace through faith in Jesus, that God accepts us just the way we are, loves us just the way we are because of Jesus. How his mercy extends to all, not just Jews, but everyone. So in light of that, we're going to be looking from chapter 12. Paul calls us to live as transformed people. Now, interestingly, he doesn't say to them, like I would say to my kids when they argue, you go over there, stay away from each other. He doesn't say to the Jews, oh, you have your church over there, and to the non-Jews, you have your church over there, and hopefully will have no division. He says that is not an option here. You are all united with Christ. So in chapter 12, he really goes into all sorts of things about how it's really an alternative vision of church. How rather than arguing and being divided, they can be together. And really it's asking that question. Used to be these bracelets, some of you might have them. WWJD, what would Jesus do? What would Jesus do if he was in this circumstance, in this situation? And really Paul's trying to explain that. He's telling him to think differently. He compares the church to a body where we're all got different parts and hands and feet, all very different, but all working together, united for one singular purpose. And he talks about how we should treat one another. And there is loads here. And if you have the opportunity, you might want to go away and read that latter part of Romans. But I just thought, what is the key thing we can drill right down to that I feel God's saying to me, and I'm therefore going to share with you. And we're going to look at Romans chapter 12 and verses 9 and 10. They're on the screen. You're welcome to look them up. There are some Bibles over there, but probably the easiest thing is just to look up there. This is what it says. Love must be sincere. Hate what is evil. Cling to what is good. Be devoted to one another in love. Honor one another above yourselves. Let's just unpick just a little bit about what those words saying. We talked a bit about love, didn't we, last week, if you were here, and we looked at Paul writing to the church in Corinth saying love should be patient, kind, all these sort of things that we often say at a wedding, and it's a great list. But here he says love must be sincere, and the literal words in there, it says it should be without hypocrisy, which we looked at a few weeks ago. Hypocrisy was basically where actors put on a mask. So your love shouldn't be a mask that you wear. It should be genuine, not strategic. It's not just something you're doing in order to get something else. If I show love to this person, maybe I will get this in return. It should be costly, not convenient. I only love when it works well for me on my timetable. And it should be consistent, not just based on the particular situation that you found in. And really for these guys who are hearing this letter, and Paul is writing it, he's not really thinking of love as an emotion that maybe we do with our lovey-dovey romance films and things like that. Love is much more about what we do than necessarily what we feel. Because our feelings, let's be honest, are very difficult to control. But we can control what we do. How do you treat people? How do you act? How do you behave? How do you speak, regardless of the situation and how you might be feeling at the moment? But he carries on, hate what is evil and cling what is good. He's not asking you to change how, what you feel about us, whether something's right or something is wrong. In an agreement, in a disagreement, you may believe certain things that are contrary to the other person. That's fine. But he's saying you still must love them. You must show loving acts towards them. He goes on, be devoted to one another in love. Now, this is where it gets a little bit complicated. Not really, but in Greek, the New Testament was written in Greek. They had 4 different words for love, a bit like Eskimos in snow. 4 different words for love. The first one, love must be sincere, refers to sacrificial love. So love making sacrifices, kind of get that. The second one is much more about affection, about family, about loyalty, about informality, about warmth. He's saying in your gatherings, they should be warm and just like a family gathering. You might have your family, don't know what your family is like, there might be lots of arguments in your family. And that was certainly the situation in this church in Rome. But it says you're a family and you should be affectionate to one another. And then lastly, this last line, which I think is really, really important and really struck me, it says, honor one another above yourself. Honor one another above yourself. Show them honor. What is key to understand is showing them honor is not an endorsement of their views, their opinions, or their actions. It's a recognition that as a fellow human being, they are made in God's image, even if you think they're wrong. And this means practically refusing those caricatures. You are always, or people like that are always. It means listening to understand before responding, before stating what you think is right. It means speaking about people with the same care, whether they are present or not. That's a difficult one, isn't it? Would you say that about them if they were standing next to you? Would you get a punch in the face if you did? See, for Paul, this is the third way. The third way is this. So not fight, not flight, so not have a big argument with them, not run away and ignore the problem. It's about posture before position, is how we reflect Jesus in the divided world. And Romans 12 gives us not a method for resolving disagreements, but a way of remaining like Jesus when agreement is unlikely. It's quite possible that church in Rome never sorted out the problem between Jews and non-Jews, wanting to do church in different ways. And Paul's saying, that isn't the point here. The point is, in your disagreement, are you being like Jesus? The third way is all about posture before position. Because Jesus does not tell us what to think about others. It tells us how to treat them while we are thinking about them. And the reality in this, our biggest obstacle, the biggest cause of disagreements and splits and disunity, it's me and it's you. And Paul is saying to that church in Rome and to us as well, get over yourself. Get over yourself. There are things that are more important than a difference of opinion. And it's the fact that Jesus has broken down the walls of hostility and united us as one people. And in these disagreements, my responsibility and your responsibility is to be more like Jesus, to be a Christ-like presence. God's responsibility, his final judgment. Ultimately, people are going to be judged at the end. Leave that to God. In our first sermon of this series, we looked at the fact that Jesus said, do not judge others. First of all, look at yourselves and judge where you are at. So my responsibility is Christ-like presence. God's responsibility is final judgment. The Holy Spirit's responsibility is to transform us so we can better love people and get over those issues that hold us back. So you don't have to change your position, but you do need to work on your posture towards others. I'm coming to the end now, and I just want to share you something that I spotted on social media last month. And it's a lady, you can see her in the red coat there, is the Reverend Dr. Sally Mann. She is the minister of Bonnie Downs Baptist Church in, I think it's East London, it's London anyway. And she went along to, there was a Unite the Kingdom, was it? Unite the Kingdom rally last month. There's been a few recently, and they did a carol service. Now, she doesn't necessarily, she doesn't hold the same position as the people that attended the rally, but she went along, she set up 2 chairs, and this is what it says. It says, she sat down with 2 chairs and had a steady flow of interlocutors. What's that mean? I should have read this first. People were angry on the surface and then very quickly hurt and lonely, she said on Sunday. It was actually like pastoring a youth group. And I don't mean that in a patronizing way. I meant that we need to recognize that there's a loss of sense of identity for a lot of people, she said. She went along there. There's some videos on social media, and she's quite open with her views that are very different to those who are attending the rally. But what she decided to do was sit down, set up those 2 chairs, and just offer to listen and offer to pray. And by doing so, she dug below the surface and found out why people were really there. And actually, it surprised her. It wasn't what she thought. She didn't change her views. She didn't back down. She still stood up for what she believed in, but she refused to build up walls and see people as 2D caricatures. These people always. So as we finish this series, we're reminded that following Jesus doesn't start with having all the right answers, but with choosing the right posture. This hasn't been about landing on specific ethical rulings. In fact, I've purposely avoided saying anything about what I believe about any particular moral issue. But it's about the thinking patterns that shape how we react and how we respond. In a world that's quick to judge and slow to listen, Jesus invites us to slow down, to listen well, and to treat people not as problems to fix or size to defeat, but as people made in God's image. Black and white thinking might come naturally, but the way of Jesus is better. So here's a question I want to leave us with. Am I more concerned about being proved right or with being recognizably like Jesus? Very quickly, we're going to have some questions that come up just to help us reflect a bit. But as churches in Hawley, we are going to be starting a course. Week beginning 23rd of February. There's going to be various venues and various times and locations. If you get your phone out now, you can scan that QR code and that'll take you to a form and tell you where those are. But really, this difference course is all about how can we follow Jesus in a conflicted and divided world? It's looking at very much practically what we've been looking at theoretically over the last 4 weeks. And then, like I said, there's lots of venues. But you might be interested in doing that this Lent. But here's the questions.
Am I being formed by Christ or conformed by fear? Am I treating this person with honour, even in disagreement? Is my response shaped by the Spirit or by the culture around me?
Fun, yeah. Yeah. It's been an interesting series, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, it's just challenging that just the way we interact with people, isn't it?
Yes.
It's made me think a lot about how sometimes we try to be right what I do, or have done in the past, and gradually I'm thinking that just causes walls. To a degree, some people need to hear blunt, but
and sometimes it's hard, isn't it? I was trying to think about it and thinking, if because we all think we're right, don't we? None of it, unless we know we're not sure, we generally all think we're right. So it is hard when you disagree with someone. But I guess it's about the whole point has been it's okay to disagree with people. We can have different opinions.
Yes.
But we need to be Christlike as we do it.
Yes. I think it's just sharing our thoughts, isn't it? And not necessarily judging their thinking. Though I suppose in some ways you would judge.
Yeah, because it's not for us to judge, isn't it? So is there something different about judging the person? So if someone has an opinion that we disagree with, or has a behaviour we disagree with, we should still love them.
Oh yeah, love them.
And
to love them would be to help them leave that behaviour, wouldn't it, as well?
Yeah, so that's behaviour. If it's an opinion, I think it's harder if it's an opinion. It's not as clear cut, is it? If I think one thing and you think something else, we both think we're right. That's quite hard, isn't it, to do that in love?
Yes.
And hopefully, I think this service has been really good because I think generally, certainly here as a fellowship, we're quite good at it, talking in love. I don't think it's a big argument.
And people have different views on things.
Yeah, I think we've got quite a lot of different views.
They're not like major views, are they? No. So we're all saved by Jesus.
Yes, I think we all agree with that one. I always feel a bit like if we all agree with that one, a lot of the others are peripherals.
Yeah.
Important. Secondary, important. I quite like what you said about the different types of love. You said there was the first type in the Romans passage was about being sincere, and the second one was like about having affection and sort of, being warm to each other. And I quite like that idea. And the third one was about honouring other people above yourself. Sort of the Jesus making them more important than you.
Yeah,
I like that. And if you have that in your head when you're talking to people.
Yes,
I
like that. Hard to do though, I think.
Oh, it is.
Certain people grate me.
Well, it's hard because you can't. Am I allowed to say we can't like everybody? Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah.
Yeah, because there are some people
you can have a love for them, like a care for them.
Yes. Yeah, and I guess that's what it is. We still have to have all these things, even if we don't particularly like someone or their behaviour. It's difficult, isn't it? I like this last question, which wasn't one of the three questions. I did write it down. Am I more concerned about being found right or being recognised to be like Jesus? I'm usually more concerned about being. I think that's bad. Although sometimes I don't want to be right. I just think if I am right, then everyone else should see it my way, because then that'll be
that's the same thing, isn't it?
Well, it is, but it's hard, isn't it? When you look at something objectively and come to a decision about what's right, and then someone else looks at it objectively and thinks something different, it's quite hard to work that out.
Yes, ultimately they're wrong, aren't they? They are in your view.
In your view, yes.
Yeah. So I suppose if you share your view and they share theirs, you just have to agree to disagree.
Yes, I think that's that. But I think that is it, and I think that's okay. And I think that's been the point of the series. Really, it's okay to disagree. It's okay for us to have different opinions on things that are not, and sort of taking it outside of church. It's the same, isn't it? Sort of taking it into a family situation. We may not all have the same opinions. I mean, we're not going to talk about politics, but within a family, we may have different political opinions.
Yes.
That we may hold on to. And I know that, I'm not going to mention politics, but there have been some issues in recent years that have caused families to split, haven't they? Because they've had different political opinions.
Right. Okay.
And that's just so sad, isn't it? Because you should be able to hold different opinions and still love each other and still be sincere and still honour each other.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I think Jesus loved everybody. Well, Jesus did love everybody. So I think there were people who had strongly different views. Didn't stop them from talking about it and engaging with it.
I was just thinking of like the lady caught in adultery, where everyone wanted to condemn her and stone her. That's the law gave them the right to, but they left because Jesus said, "Whoever's without sin will first cast the stone." And they all left, and it's just Jesus and the lady. And he basically forgave her. He said, "They're not going to punish you, then I'm not." But then at the end, he says, "But leave your life to sin."
Yes,
isn't it? That's the key thing people forget. So I think there is, although we can accommodate people and their sin, there is a thing for us to prompt people to live a better life.
Yeah, no, I think so. No, I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I think we're definitely cool to do that. But it's about doing it without being judgmental, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
And that's the hard bit. Yeah, that's the hard bit. Sometimes just think, you don't, and that's just not our place, is it? Our place is in love. A bit like he did. So he loved her first, didn't he? He loved her first and said, "I can give you go," and and he loved her, and then said, "But just as you go, just don't do that again." It was very gentle, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah.
There was a crowd were really angry, and so that's a really good example. I think that's excellent. Very good. I think it's so excellent. Just stop there.
Good, great.
Good. So I hope you've enjoyed the series. If you haven't caught them all, they're available on podcast or on YouTube. Catch them all. And I would tell you what the next series, which we're launching into, is 4 different people speaking, and it's transforming lives. So
great.
looking forward to that. So yeah. So do drop us a like and a follow and all that stuff. So, have a good week.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
That is it for today's episode. Well done for joining us and making it here to the end. Hopefully you feel slightly encouraged at least, or that you want to follow Jesus just that little bit more closely. You can join us in the room on a Sunday, but if that's too big of a next step for you, did you know you can also join us online through a video feed to one of our morning services? Do get in contact with us if you'd like to find out how you can do that. If you've got any questions about what you've heard today, or about anything that's to do with following Jesus and just church lives, things we might be able to help you with, we've got an email address just for you. It's gotquestions@hawleybaptist.org.uk. We'd love to hear from you there. Don't forget to share this. If you've enjoyed it, somebody else might do too. Share it with your friends. If you want to keep up to date with all that we do, hit that subscribe button to maintain that link with us and all that we produce. You can find it as well, links to these different things on hawleybaptist.org.uk/media as well. Thank you for joining us again. We pray God blesses you, and we will look forward to you joining us next time.